everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we have insane conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. Now let me know in the comments if you believe in any of these, whether you actually think that they are true or not true. Let's see how outlandish they can be. And let me see what other videos we should venture into. We've done scary videos and we're doing conspiracy theories now. Let's see where we can venture off to. So let's jump straight into it and see what's going on.
Thanks to the mass sharing allowed by social media sites, we're currently living in the golden era of conspiracy theory. The truth might be out there, but there are millions of lies out there too. We're sorry to burst your bubble, folks, but
What do
Michael
you think
Jackson,
about
Elvis,
Michael
and
Jackson?
Tupac are all definitely dead. Wayfair Furniture is
Oh,
not
well,
involved
there
in
you
human
go.
trafficking, and we'd advise you to leave any lizard people theories at the door. But that doesn't mean every crazy conspiracy is false. In fact, some of the ones that turned out to be true are often the craziest of all. First, we'll open with a classic, MK-Ultra, the CIA's secret mind control plot.
I've heard
When
about
LSD,
this.
a hallucinogenic chemical compound, became a popular drug in the mid-20th century, hippies were using it to touch the face of God at music
Apparently they were
festivals,
pumping it
and
out
the
at
CIA,
festivals.
who, well, spoilers will come up a lot in this video, were trying to weaponize it. The concept of the CIA developing a secret mind control program sounds like something you might hear being discussed extensively at your local psych ward. But believe it or not, this really did happen during the covert MK-Ultra project. They
This
tricked
is
heroin
mad that
addicts
the
into
president
taking LSD
actually
doses
authorized
and
something like
recruited
this, right?
unsuspecting men at fake brothels, followed by electroshock and hypnotism experiments. As far as we're
Brothels?
aware, no useful results ever came out of the project, despite the experiments destroying the lives of many of their subjects. When a Freedom of Information Act request spilled the beans on this project in 1977, it gave the American public yet another reason in an already turbulent decade to distrust
So
the
much
government.
comes out on this
But
Freedom
the
of
US government
Information
isn't the
Act.
only one who
I'm
was
not
up to
sure
some
if
crazy
we have the same
conspiracy-inspiring
thing in the
science
UK or
experiments.
not.
This might seem like a lowbrow joke, but in the 1960s, the Canadian government funded the creation of a real-life gaydar. Before you all start snickering like
Oh,
high
no.
schoolers, you should know that despite seeming pretty silly on the surface, this had horrible consequences for the lives of around 400 people.
Oh,
Frank Robert
no.
Wake,
I
a
wasn't-
professor
I
at
wasn't
Canada's
laughing at
Carleton
that.
University, designed the machine to measure pupil dilation in response to images of a homosexual nature. This incredibly unscientific device
Wow.
was then tested on a
Wow.
huge number of government employees, 400 of whom were fired after testing positive for gay. The cruelest insult on top of all this financial injury, the real-life gaydar
Testing
was
positive
internally
for
nicknamed the fruit
gay.
machine, a nod toward a common homophobic phrase at the time. Stay classy, Canada. Let's hop away from North America and over to North Korea, one of the weirdest countries in the world. There are very few countries that are actively friendly with the DPRK, but one country that has a particularly strained relationship with them is Japan. So much so that there was a long-running conspiracy theory of the North Korean government disappearing Japanese citizens. And as you probably guessed from
What?
the title of this video, this conspiracy theory turned out
So
to
they
be
would just go on
completely
holiday
true.
and then
In
disappear.
2002, the now deceased
What?
former Supreme Leader Kim Jong-il straight up admitted that the country had kidnapped at least 13 Japanese citizens. To their credit, they did give 5 of them back after this. The location of the other 8 is still an open question.
Gave
Okay,
5
back
of
to the
them
United
back.
States now. Though this conspiracy theory was performed against the US government rather than by it. The assassination of President Abraham Lincoln by John Wilkes Booth. Even our framing there suggests that John Wilkes Booth was a lone wolf triggerman, a deranged racist out-of-work actor willing to bet his life to take down Honest Abe. Naturally, conspiracies popped up that Booth wasn't acting alone. And yep, the conspiracy turned out to be true. Booth worked with at least 9 other Confederate co-conspirators, most of
Damn.
whom were would-be assassins themselves. These included George Astaroth, who tried and failed to assassinate Vice President Andrew Johnson, Lewis Powell, who tried and failed to assassinate Secretary of State William Seward, and Mary Surratt, who would become the first woman ever to be hanged by the United States government.
What
Not
did she
exactly
do?
a successful bunch. From a defied
Yo,
American leader to a defied
What did she
Tibetan leader.
do?
You might have heard a number of
She was
conspiracy
just the
theories
first
about
one
the
to. They were
Dalai
like,
Lama,
okay, she's
the
dead.
spiritual figurehead of Tibet. Given that the Dalai Lama is opposed to Chinese expansion, many have accused the United States of funding the Dalai Lama as a form of proxy opposition. And they are right. Reports extrapolated from U.S. intelligence accounts have shown the CIA has given His Holiness a $180,000 a year stipend for at least several years since 1960
Yeah, but
as
we
part of
knew
a
like
wider
the US
project to
government
fund the
does
Tibetan
this.
exile movements during the Cold War.
We know the US government does this though. It's been a known thing for ages that they basically just give all these like powerful people more and more money to stop them being overthrown. Like it happened. I'm gonna get it wrong, but I'm pretty sure like it happened. That's how the whole Iraq thing happened.
Let's take a little break from sinister dealings performed by governments and look at some of the shady little things that private companies have been up to. It's generally accepted that sugar isn't exactly great for you. But if the sugar industry had their way, you wouldn't know that. In 1967, the Sugar Research Foundation, a lobbying organization funded by companies that deal heavily in sugar products, oversaw a study that downplayed the links between sugar consumption and cardiac diseases. But corporate sugar conspiracies like this aren't a thing of the distant past. The Coca-Cola Company paid millions to commission a study muddying the link between sugary sodas and obesity back in 2015. But all of that seems like
2015
small
as well.
potatoes
That's
compared
so
to a small
close.
group of
Like, so
companies getting
recent.
together and planning a fascist takeover of the United States of America. It feels almost like a textbook premise of a conspiracy thriller, but it actually occurred in 1933 with the business plot. Senator Prescott Bush, grandfather of George W. Bush,
Are we on a
teamed up
new
with
one?
business leaders from Chase Bank, Goodyear,
starting to
Standard
lose
Oil,
track.
GM, and the DuPont family with the goal of funding a military coup to take down FDR and install a fascist dictatorship. The one flaw in their evil plan was reaching out to Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler to lead the military part of the military coup, despite the fact that he was a vocal FDR supporter. He blew the whistle and smothered the plan before it even took off. Despite being involved in literally treasonous conspiracy, none of the business plotters were ever punished. We can at least thank Smedley Butler for nipping the fascist
That's
takeover
the
plan
thing,
in the
isn't
bud,
it? Like,
but the
if you
fact
do
that the son and grandson
something
of Prescott
like
Bush would become the
for the
presidents of the
president
country
that's dodgy,
he tried to
they'll wipe it
overthrow
off. If you
really
do
just
something
feels
that's
like a
against
sick
president
joke.
for the,
But somehow a
you're the
diabolical
worst
fascist
person on
takeover
there.
is nowhere near the most horrifying and disgusting corporate conspiracy in this video. A real contender for that would be the Bayer Pharmaceutical Company and one of their very sinister-sounding subsidiaries, Cutter Biological. In the 1980s, Cutter Biological moved into the business of selling blood clotting medicine to hemophiliacs, manufactured from the blood of non-hemophiliacs. But for the medicine they were selling to Latin America and Asia, they didn't properly screen their donors. The result? Cutter Biological sold products that infected 20,000 patients with HIV, a travesty that they then spent years trying to cover up. What could possibly be worse than infecting 20,000 hemophiliacs with HIV? Probably being complicit in a cover-up that could spark the end of the world.
Why wouldn't they just
While climate
check
change has
this?
become a hot-button topic recently, due to the
Why
fact that we are
wouldn't they
currently
just
living
check
through
it?
its effects, the people behind ExxonMobil Fuel Company knew about it as early as the 1970s. Due to climate research they funded at the time, then spent millions suppressing. Their lobbying has muddied the waters and delayed action on climate change because it would affect their bottom line, putting millions if not billions of lives at risk in the process. Now that we've exposed the shadowy horrors of the corporate world, let's return to the crazy governmental conspiracies for the rest of the video. And believe it or not, these are literally all conspiracies that the United States government is responsible for. USA! USA! We're
Okay,
number
these
one,
are all
baby.
US.
That includes being number one to hire ex-Nazi scientists right after the conclusion of World War
I
II.
know about
Operation
this. This was
Paperclip
on
was
Joe
created as an
Rogan.
effort to give the U.S. a technological and scientific edge during the Cold War, even if it meant making a deal with the devil. Though that's not entirely accurate, it was more like taking a deal with 1,500 devils, all of
It's
which
hard,
were given
isn't
full
it? It's
clemency,
hard because
having their slates wiped
I'm
clean
pretty
with
sure.
new and Nazi-free backstories written for them by the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency.
I'm pretty
These
sure
included the diabolical Nazi scientists
the
Werner von
guys
Braun,
that we got,
Hubertus Struckhold, and Arthur Rudolph. Some
like,
truly monstrous
advanced
people were able to
technology
get
so
away with their
far.
crimes scot-free, but hey, at least we got the V-2 rocket and the moon landing
Like
out
the
of it.
horrible
Let's
people.
not
These
move away
people
from
should have been
evil
able
science
to.
just yet.
We should have locked these people up and thrown away the key and give them like just give them a I don't know, a pencil and a piece of paper. Let them continue doing science. You know, knowledge doesn't have to be restricted, like just because you're in a prison. But you know, they were bad people. These people are not just like normal criminals. These people are like war criminals. These people are messed up, and we were just Well, not us, but I'm guessing the British did similar stuff. But they were like, yeah, come on over. As long as you're working for us, you're all right. Once again, back to my previous point is that if it's for the president, you're okay. If it's against, then
either. One of the most infamous stories of unethical medical testing is the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. It was a conspiracy between the U.S. Public Health Service and the Tuskegee Institute to turn around 400 black men into unknowing guinea pigs for syphilis studies, all while lying to them that they were in fact being treated for their painful and debilitating conditions. The study was kept under wraps for 40 years before the shameful
ridiculous.
exploitation of these men was revealed
Absolutely
for all
ridiculous.
to see. In 1974, there was a $10 million payout to the surviving victims of the program, but nothing could ever give them back the years wasted in unnecessary suffering. But even death can't necessarily save you from being involved in a horrific scientific conspiracy. As a general rule, if a government project has a strangely innocent-sounding name,
Project
it's probably
Sunshine.
trying to hide the fact that it's enough to give you nightmares. This was definitely the case with Project Sunshine, a 1950 study on the effects of radiation on human bodies. It goes without saying this is extremely important to research, but it doesn't mean that it was conducted ethically. In order to have varied collection of the data, the scientists involved in the project had their personnel steal parts of corpses like Victorian grave robbers, including those of children and even
steal
infants.
them.
This would be macabre, but
We're just
ultimately
gonna
ethical
take
if the
the
families had
pieces.
consented to donate their relatives' bodies to science. But when these tests were performed, the families had no idea. Burke and Hare would be proud that their legacy lives on. Racially motivated testing and grave robbing are one kind of horrible,
So
but
bad.
indiscriminately releasing a bioweapon on an entire area is another. If you enjoy spending time near large
didn't.
bodies of water, the
They
name Operation
didn't.
Sea Spray might evoke pleasant and relaxing vibes. Nothing at all like the US Navy releasing 2 different types of dangerous and infectious bacteria from a boat on the San Francisco Bay in 1950, infecting 11 different people with an aggressive urinary tract infection that killed one of them. Why? Because they wanted to know how the city's population would react to the release of that kind of pathogen. The details were all
They
kept
did
under
it
wraps
just
until
because they
being
wanted to
revealed
see
the world
what would
almost 3
happen.
decades later in 1977. But the U.S. government
That could have been
wasn't quite done
anything.
playing God
They
just
could have
yet.
said
During the Vietnam War, the
anything.
CIA engaged in a secret project called Operation Sober Popeye. This was a plot to control the very weather in Vietnam and use it as a weapon in the war against the Viet Cong. For years, the CIA attempted to seed rain clouds in Vietnam that
gonna
would
say,
extend
I'm
the
pretty
country's
sure-
natural monsoon season,
I'm pretty sure that
bogging
they
down
do
their
this,
forest-dwelling
don't they?
commando enemies. Thankfully, they didn't
Don't they do this normally? They just seed rain clouds like over America and stuff now. I'm pretty sure that they just, I'm sure I've heard that
fully
somewhere.
succeed, and in 1978, military applications of weather manipulating technology was classified as a war crime. The CIA, at least theoretically, would be forced to take their combat weather aspirations off the table. How about another CIA weapon that sounded like an insane conspiracy theory before being revealed to be terrifyingly real? Every year, 805,000 Americans suffer from heart attacks, many of them fatal. It's
Oh,
a terrible
no.
consequence of the cardiac illness
Don't tell
epidemic
me
in the
this
country.
is like
But could it
brought
also
on
be
by
the
the
result of elite CIA assassins taking out targets? And how would a CIA assassin induce a heart attack without
no.
a trace? A specifically designed
what I
heart
thought.
attack gun, of course, one that fires a frozen dart carrying deadly blowfish poison, which then melts after transfer, inducing a heart attack and leaving a small red dot on the body as the only evidence of foul play. While this might seem like a bizarre fantasy cooked up by someone who watched a few too many
What? It just leaves a red dot on the skin. But surely if the dart is being fired, it's still, while it's a solid, it creates a tear in the skin. So even though it melts, surely they would be able to tell that he was still shot with something, right? Even though it's not there. I don't know. Let me know if my thought process is all wrong here. But surely it's still a bullet while it's ice, right? And then it melts. Then there's no bullet.
James Bond movies, Senator Frank Church revealed the very real heart attack pistol during a public hearing in Congress about some of the seedier activities of the CIA. So let's give the CIA a bit of a break. before Infographics Show HQ undergoes a mysterious series of simultaneous heart attacks, and look at the shady conspiratorial antics of the US's domestic intelligence agency, the FBI. There are plenty of conspiracy theories about celebrities. Ironically, they normally consist of theories that a dead celebrity is actually alive, like Tupac, or that a living celebrity is actually dead, like Paul McCartney. But we're interested in a different
Paul
Beatle
McCartney's
today,
dead.
the band's frontman,
Imagine.
John Lennon. It was theorized for years that the FBI had it in for Lennon, and those theories are actually completely correct. The FBI didn't take kindly to Lennon's anti-war songs, so rather than giving peace a chance, they decided to take a peek at Lennon's dirty laundry in the hopes of finding something juicy as a basis to blackmail or even deport him. But Lennon is hardly the only celebrity who's had the FBI on their back. Singer Aretha Franklin was
What would to be
frequently
bothered
stopped
about what
and hassled
Lennon
by
said?
the FBI for her leftist political stances. The Bureau kept background check files on a shocking number of famous people, including Steve Jobs, Whitney Houston, Helen Keller, Marilyn Monroe, Walt Disney, Charlie Chaplin, Rock Hudson, Truman
Charlie
Capote,
Chaplin.
and even
I
sitcom
could just see him
superstar
running
Lucille
away
Ball.
in
But
silent,
their stalking
you know,
of
like a
celebrities
silent
is
movie
nothing
away
compared to
from
how
the
they
police.
destroyed American
I love him.
activist groups under J. Edgar Hoover's COINTELPRO plan, where they engaged in everything from blackmail to gaslighting to even straight-up assassination, taking on everything from unions to hippie peace groups to the Black Panther movement. By the time COINTELPRO was through, activism in the United States was a shadow of its former self. Okay, we have one more CIA story for you because these guys
This
create
is all
conspiracies like
just
Willy
CIA.
Wonka makes chocolate.
These guys are
Anyone
mad.
who watches a lot of news might start to get the sense that there's some spin going on, that the seemingly impartial reporting of information might actually be a Trojan horse for an agenda. While these days that agenda comes from the various corporations that all own major news stations, for several decades in the mid-20th century, it was coming from the CIA, courtesy of an initiative known as Operation Mockingbird. Frank Wisner, head of the CIA's Office of Special Projects, spearheaded a far-reaching media influence campaign that gave him control of key figures from the New York Times, CBS, and members of the Washington Press Corps. At the height of the program, 3,000 CIA employees were tasked with maintaining Wisner's complex propaganda machine, as they spied on journalists who worked with whistleblowers and paid other journalists to disseminate false information that served the CIA's narrative. It was a conspiracy
mad.
theorist's
So,
dream and nightmare
literally
come
just
true.
pumping out
Now check
lies.
out what actually are the Illuminati, or check out this video instead. Thanks to the mass share.
Well, let me know what you think, guys, whether you believe any of them. They all seem, well, they say that they're all true, and some of them they are, like, there's very detailed documentation about it, especially Project Paperclip, and there's Nazi scientists. There's plenty of people about them, talking about them, sorry. But yeah, let me know. See what other things we can get into as well. There's plenty of other videos on here, so if you want to see more like this, just let me know and we can do more. I'm trying to bring out videos daily. My work schedule's a bit hectic at the moment, but we're trying to bring them out as quickly as possible. Thanks for watching. Drop me a follow and I'll catch you next time.